Good afternoon, everyone. A very warm welcome from our side to this breakout session here today. We came all the way from Germany, and we are very excited to be here, and even more excited to share the experience that we have made and gained throughout the cloud-first transformation of Mercedes-Benz Aftersales. Hence, thank you so much for showing up in such large numbers and sparing your time to listen to our experience. And as far as we know, there are quite some people who couldn't make it here physically today and have to join us virtually through a Content Hub right now. Therefore, thank you so much for listening in. We hope you enjoyed as much as we do down here. Having that said, now before I just jump right into the outline, please give us a chance to introduce ourselves really briefly, starting with the most important person on stage here today, Eva.
Thank you, Fuad. So, hi everyone, also from my side. My name is Eva Rieber. I'm working for Mercedes since approximately 10 years now. My responsibility in the after-sales platform is mainly the overall architecture and the program management. I'm doing this approximately 2.5 years now. Before that, I was responsible for several applications and products within the after-sales area. And even before that, I was working in the on-premise data center in Europe within Mercedes. Overall, I have a background in computer science. And with that being said, let me hand over to Michael.
Yeah. Hello, everyone, also from my side. It's truly an honor to be here today. It really is. We've been excited for weeks. And I'm Michael. I'm a manager here at Deloitte and lead AWS architecture of the Mercedes-Benz Aftersales platform. I also have a traditional computer science background, so started out as a system administrator, so really administrating Cisco routers, CentOS Linux, and Active Directory controllers. Then didn't like that anymore, so I switched to full stack development, and now 6 years ago found a new home at Deloitte and been doing, AWS ever since, and AWS exclusively ever since. Fuad.
Thank you, Michael. Hi from my side as well. My name is Fuad Muhajiri, and I've joined Deloitte around about 4 years ago as a cloud architect and manager, and have had the chance and pleasure to work alongside Michael and the team within the cloud transformation and cloud development practice in Germany ever since. Before that, my journey started quite young as a developer and a systems engineer in Linux, and have had the luck to gain experience in platform engineering and cloud application development ever since throughout multiple different consultancies and industries. And definitely one of the major ones being the industry here today, automotive, and the project that we are going to talk about. Now, enough about myself. Now let's get to the bread and butter of this session and what you can expect from us here today. We will kick it off with the Mercedes-Benz Aftersales strategy and vision and explain the reasons why they started this to embark this cloud transformation journey. After that, we will delve into the key aspects of the technology and structure transformation and display how we overcame certain challenges and how we made certain decisions. And at the end, to round everything up, we will share the lessons learned we made along the way and give you the chance to ask questions or dive into short discussions with us at the end of the session. So once again, thank you so much for being here. And without further ado, I'm handing it over to Eva to kick it off with Mercedes-Benz After-Sales Strategy and Vision. Thank you, Eva.
Yeah, thank you, Fuad. Then let me give you an overview about the Mercedes-Benz After-Sales IT vision and strategy. I will do this with 2 concrete examples. One is service contract management systems, where I used to work before I joined the After-Sales platform team. And we will make a small excursus into esports with League of Legends, where not only Mercedes is one of the main sponsors, AWS is one as well. Also, a quick shout out to the colleagues from Riot. They have a session tomorrow, and I think they would be happy if you join there as well. Yeah, so overall, the Mercedes-Benz after-sales IT strategy is an essential part of the digital customer experience journey. Overall, how do esports and service contract management systems do anyhow match here? Let me explain you that. League of Legends World Championships were some weeks ago hosted in South Korea. And there was, in addition, this is the so-called Worlds, in addition, there was a watch party event in Berlin, which was also sponsored and organized by Mercedes. One of the major topics there for Mercedes was they have organized a paper chase. And during this paper chase, you were able to win a test drive as one of the prizes there. And now imagine, you're on a watch party watching Worlds, and you win the test drive, you register yourself, and after that, you decide that you want to purchase this car. And then you go ahead, you have purchased this beautiful car, and then drive around, having fun with your car, and then very warm welcome to the after-sales customer experience journey. So one rule of thumb, which is an essential part of our strategy, is never ask the same question twice. And yeah, just imagine with upcoming Worlds in next year, we already know that you love League of Legends, and imagine your MBUX screen will directly appear during the Worlds event in the League of Legends skin. How amazing would be that? And if you have bought for your shiny new car a service contract, then you are part of service contract management systems. Yeah, staying with service contract management systems, how did this look like approximately 2 years ago? So let's do a little time travel and travel back to 2021. I was working for service contract management systems during that time. How does it look like? Did it look like? So we had super closed silos, and we had something which we call a little bit like real end-to-end perspective. What does that mean? You are responsible for everything, starting with the deep infrastructure, be it framework, architecture, guidelines, etc. So one of the small advantages is like you can take independent decisions. You just have to go to your hierarchy and say, so hey, I want to go this way or I want to go that way. And if it's approved, you can do whatever you like. So of course, this has also disadvantages. This overall results into solving the same problems several times, be it in middleware, be it infrastructure, be it compliance. Yeah. Additionally, things that happened, so imagine before the COVID crisis. You went into the office, grab some coffee, have a quick coffee chit-chat with your colleagues. It's like, so, hey, I implemented this and that last week. What are you doing currently? And the answer is like, so, oh, I have implemented the very same, a little bit different, but it's the same in the end. Okay, nice, thank you, have a nice day. So to summarize it up, high redundancy all over. But not only from a technical point of view. We observed this high redundancy also if you look into processes and administrational tasks and efforts. They were super individual, super specialized, designed for each closed silo, for each app. And it's not only applying for service contract management systems. You could observe this behavior in the complete after-sales IT area. There were so much potentials for shared services. We will come to this later as well, but they were not used. It was simply individual app decision, closed silo implementations all over. But how to solve the 2021 issues? First of all, for me, it's crucial that you understand that implementation of new technology as such is absolutely insufficient. So if you have seen the holistic customer journey point of view, the same applies here. You have to create a holistic change. So not only technology. So Michael will we will guide you through that our presentation in a way that we will first show you our technology transformation, which will Michael do, and then we will continue with the structural transformation, which will Fuad take over, so that you can get a holistic view of what we changed beyond technical implementations. And we will finish up with our lessons learned. But let's travel back in the here and now. Let me spoil you a little bit what we have achieved so far. So I think we are in a very good way that we have done a holistic transformation Of course, we had outstanding management support from all companies involved, and we managed to go live with our after-sales platform in less than 6 months. And this is really amazing. I think we are on a very good way of breaking the silos. We have one platform, we have one stack, we have one ops. Something which was really, really amazing to observe from my side was the community-based know-how sharing. So we have a lot of colleagues without further involvement. They meet up once per week, twice per week, sitting together and sharing their experiences with our platform. It's like, so hey, what have you done? And so on and so forth. And they are self-organized user groups. And this gives me always like a little bit of feeling, this is more than a platform. This is almost a movement, and it feels like you're a little part of a digital revolution. So, let me take the time as well to give a quick shout out to my former colleagues from Service Contract Management Systems, because they migrated everything into the after-sales platform, and they went live with all markets in less than 3 months, which is really amazing. Michael, do you want to tell us a little bit more what we have achieved from a technical point of view?
Sure. Thank you so much, Eva. So, when we were tasked to design the architecture, one of the requirements was also zero overhead, which is almost as easy as zero redundancy, right? I mean, it's incredibly hard. It's almost impossible, but we can come very, very close. So we provide to the applications a stable platform. We provide shared services. And that doesn't mean that the teams cannot make decisions themselves anymore. They are supposed to innovate, right? But it just means that the feature teams, they can fail faster, right? So they can try out different approaches in a stable environment with stable shared services and find their best approach. And of course, we still have, in service contract management systems, we have different configurations because it works very differently in China compared to Western Europe, for example. So we have configuration-based rollouts which allow for these customizations while still maintaining one stack. Now let's really dig deep into the technology. So this is a 300-level session. So we're going to go deep on technology. Today's safety word is Azure. So if you get confused at any point, raise your hand, yell out Azure ID or Entra ID or whatever it's called now. We'll fix that for you. All right, so I promised technology, and now I bring you a consulting slide. I'm really sorry about that.
We like you nevertheless, no worries.
Thank you. So please bear with me. We really believe this is very important. So if we would apply Eva's real end-to-end responsibility to the cloud stack, that would mean you would have a cloud team for your application, and there would be one person discussing subnetting, a second person would be discussing EKS versus ECS Fargate, and the third person would actually argue which model we're going to use in Bedrock. And if those 3 people are in the same meeting, it's going to be a very, very long call. So this is why it is our opinion, and also that's best practice by AWS, to actually slice the cloud stack a little bit in multiple layers of responsibility. So we start at the bottom with our cloud service provider, which is AWS. That's kind of the point why we're here. And AWS gives us a lot of cool things. Gives us data centers, gives us the electricity and cooling for it, and all of these amazing services that we've been hearing the last 2 days already about. And now, if we imagine the account provisioning in AWS like a conveyor belt. So from AWS, we get an empty AWS account, and they say you can do whatever you want with this. And now we have a foundation team that provisions services into this account. So the foundation layer provides services that every application and every use case needs. So that's really networking, DNS, that's security services. This is also where AWS organizations and Security Hub comes in, and we get a lot of stuff here already on this base layer. And then the responsibility here ends. So these services are configured for your account, and then the account is handed over to a domain-specific platform layer. So domain-specific means there can be more than one of these platforms. So why would we do it like that? Because I think every company that you work for in here has domains that have very specific requirements. Just imagine in Mercedes, research and development doesn't really have to care about GDPR compliance because they rarely use like personalized data, but in aftersales that's very important. Or if you have like a Industry 4.0 platform, they probably need centrally configured IoT core. We really don't need that in the aftersales. So even though you have multiple of those platforms where you provide additional services to the application teams, you can still strive for zero redundancies. Now, our fictional account, where we, for example, provide a central Kubernetes cluster, is configured, and then we hand it over to the application teams. And we grant the applications a lot of freedom when picking their services. So we try on every layer to enforce as much security as necessary, but give them as much freedom as anyhow possible. Now, if we go one step further, finally, some AWS service symbols. So, okay, we're getting deeper into the stack. So finally, we're getting into technology. This is what the after-sales platform looks like. So we start at the bottom again, cloud service provider, still AWS. Then comes our foundation layer. And I already said, so the foundation layers, maybe in your companies, they could look different, right? So there are still different requirements for different companies when it comes to foundation. For example, we have centrally managed KMS keys for a bunch of reasons we can discuss later, but you might not have that for your particular use case. Then we go one layer above, we have the platform layer. So this is actually what we've mostly been working on. So we have a centrally managed Kubernetes cluster, which we're going to dig deep into in just a little bit. And then we also provide Terraform templates and also GitHub template repos for the teams to actually set up their own ECS Fargate environments, for example, or other modules for different use cases. And then if there are some people in here working for old companies, let's say, probably all of you have to deal at some point with legacy file transfer, right? Which is always a huge pain, which is why we provide it centrally on our platform layer. And then on top, we have the applications. And you already see there's just some examples of AWS services that the platforms or the application teams can actually provision themselves. So that also supports the DevOps shift left approach because, yeah, you build it, you run it, right? So whoever sets up the service is responsible for it. But you can see we have the central Kubernetes cluster in the platform layer. But if we have larger teams or very experienced Kubernetes and AWS teams, they can also get their own cluster. That's not a problem. So it's just a different offering. Also, I already mentioned, even though we actually do have multiple platforms here, we can still strive for zero redundancy. So we have, for all of our platforms, we have a central Datadog, we have central Kafka, and of course a lot of inner sourcing when it comes to Terraform. Like nobody needs to develop their own S3 module anymore in Terraform. Like this has been solved quite a bit now. So this is shared responsibility on the high level. Now let's go one story deeper. Now we're in our shared Kubernetes cluster. So we are applying a concept called namespace as a service. That means we have a central account that is provisioned by the AWS, by the platform team, and we actually set up AWS EKS there for the teams. And when the applications get onboarded there, they already get a lot of stuff in there. So we have Nginx ingress controller that they don't have to worry about. We have Calico and Caverno for the policies to isolate the applications also from each other. We have OpenTelemetry pre-configured, and the applications get their own namespace. So hence namespace as a service, and their RBAC roles are really scoped to the namespace. So that means they are administrator within their namespace, so they cannot have any cluster-wide permissions, with some very small exceptions. But here is where the AWS concepts and Kubernetes concepts clash a little bit, because we have the issue that for AWS, the border of a tenant is kind of the account, right? So it's multi-tenancy within an account. I see a couple of smiling faces. Yeah, probably everybody has experience with that. You really don't want to do that, but on the other hand, Kubernetes is really, it's a central component, right? It's container orchestration, and you have multiple of these namespaces within one account. So how do we solve this? In using AWS RAM. So the Resource Access Manager, we can use the secondary CIDRs here. That's where our pods live. And we can share those subnets with a dedicated application team account. So these teams here on the right-hand side, these accounts, on the right-hand side, they are actually owned by the application teams, and we're simply sharing the subnets with them. The cool thing about that is that you can then see in those application accounts, you can see the subnets, you can deploy your Aurora serverless in there, or you can use your Amazon MQ, etc. You're in the same networking space, but you are protected from other teams influencing your resources. And you can do pretty much whatever you want in those accounts, within our guardrails, of course, but you can use almost any service, which, again, supports the strive for innovation for our applications. The other cool thing, that's just kind of a side effect of namespace as a service, our nodes are very well utilized. So if you've seen approaches for deployment cluster as a service, so that also works and is also a good approach. But you have a lot of stuff running multiple times, right? You still need in every cluster ingress controllers and Calico, Niniki, Verno. So you always have like a base load, and we don't have to deal with that here because we only have a couple clusters, but those are huge clusters, right? So there's always a trade-off. Now, I already spoiled OpenTelemetry. We're really excited that we get to use it, and Eva tells us now a little bit why we can use it.
Yeah, let me be your Captain Obvious. So besides the IT after-sales strategy, of course we do have an overall IT strategy, right? And one essential part of that is open source is the future of software development. And I couldn't agree more to that. Maybe you know it, Mercedes is also a member of CNCF and was just recently awarded as a top end user. So the decision for OpenTelemetry was basically a no-brainer. What was really charming on top is the vendor neutrality. We have a compatible, so OpenTelemetry is compatible with a wide range of tools, so we can reduce our vendor lock-in. But not only from a strategic point of view, the benefits of OpenTelemetry are really amazing. So as you can see in the slides, we have super good observability features, not only for performance, but as well for the behavior of our workloads overall. And, of course, we have a super seamless integration with a lot of AWS services. We heard a lot about EKS from Michael, but we have also EC2 workloads. And they are seamlessly integrationable as well. So the scalability, of course, is something with his merge mentioning. And of course, what is charming as well is the possibility to create or to observe cost savings and improve our resource utilization. Yeah, Michael, do you want to show us a little deep dive into that?
Yeah, so this slide and the next one, our devs are extremely excited that we get to show this here. We know that looks complicated, that's kind of the point. Because it's a technical session, but and we're really happy that we can share this here. So maybe show of hands, who here in the room is using Datadog? Oh, so quite a few. And who is using OpenTelemetry? So a lot less people using OpenTelemetry. That's also why Eva had to fight really hard for us, that we get to use it. And we are using the open source implementation of OpenTelemetry for EKS here. And I'm not going to lie, it is more work than using the Datadog agent out of the box. It just is. But now we're really happy with the results because we get a lot of goodies out of it. So we're still at shared responsibility, by the way. So that hasn't changed. We're just going one level deeper. And we have a central Kubernetes namespace. That is where we're setting up our hotel collectors. And we are setting up 2 of those. We are planning more in the future. But we're setting one up for metrics and the other one for logs. And we're collecting the logs and metrics centrally. And then we do some enrichment, some compression, buffering. And the metrics we send to Datadog right away. And with the logs, if the teams are logging to standard out or to standard error, we are actually sending them back to the team namespace where we have a, let's say, open telemetry gateway. We do this so the teams can use their own API key to send the logs. All right? And this is blazing fast and scales really well. Of course, you don't have to do DNS or some kind of network traffic because everything is happening within your cluster, of course. Now, this is how we deploy this. So we're using operator patterns in Kubernetes, and this is truly awesome. We're not allowed to say so much of awesome, but I already said it's hard to implement, but now that it works, it works really well. So,
it is indeed awesome. So.
yeah. So we have the operator pattern, and we can have a simple feature flag that actually influences the deployment pattern. So we have, for the metric scraping, we have a stateful set, because we still want to do some buffering on the nodes, right? But we really don't need it on every node. And for the apps, that's really cool, because if they are exposing a slash health C or a slash metrics endpoint, they have the metrics automatically in Datadog already, without doing anything. They just have to provide the endpoints. And the second thing is, for the actual log gateway, or for the log collector, we are deploying that as a daemon set, because if you are logging to standard out or to standard error, that lands on the nodes. And the teams really don't have access to the nodes because they only care about their namespaces, so we are scraping those logs for them. And this is only a simple feature flag in the operator deployment. And the third deployment pattern is the teams also have, as I already mentioned, this OTel gateway, so they can use their own API key to send their logs. They can use the same operator and just use the sidecar deployment, and they're done. Also, if they are following our best practices on logging to files, then they don't need our gateway. They can just run in sidecar mode. So this works really well in Kubernetes. And now we are coming to EC2. So shared responsibility once again applied. So we have the central platform team baking custom AMIs. We do some hardening, but we also install the OTel agent on the EC2 or into the AMIs. That thing is very, very flexible. So we actually send some metrics from the EC2 instances to Datadog, but also to CloudWatch, so we can do some custom auto-scaling here. And yeah, so as I said, even down into the Kubernetes clusters or into the AMIs, we can apply the shared responsibility model. And yeah, now, that being said, there was a lot of technical stuff, and now, as Eva said, technical is not enough, or technology is not enough. Fuad will guide us through the structural transformation.
Yes, thank you, Michael. So before I jump into the next slides, it's very important to highlight once more that the shared responsibility model, as it was introduced by Michael, was not only being applied on the technical side down to the deepest level where the code is, but also on the organizational side where the people are. All of a sudden, these people within the organization were facing new collaboration and communication effort, or new responsibilities in places where it hasn't been before. And in order to enable this shared responsibility model effectively, to help with these mentioned challenges and to break out of the silos, as they were mentioned by Eva, we were looking out for a framework that helped us doing that. And now coming to the structural transformation, the framework of our choice being SAFe. SAFe, one of the more known agile frameworks out there and probably being applied to dozens of the organizations of people sitting here today, really in its essence provided the principles and tools and the overall landscape that we needed to overcome these mentioned challenges, to enable the shared responsibility model successfully, and foster the collaboration in places where it hasn't been before. And as you can see by the slide alone, the SAFe framework in itself is quite complex, and I'm not going to talk about it, otherwise we spend hours here. As you can see, it's quite complex, and in order to ease the complexity of yet another framework towards the organization, we decided to take it a little slower and implement it in a step-by-step manner. What does that mean? We, as the platform team, and us three being part of it, decided to cherry-pick some of those principles out of that framework. So we started with sprints, with dailies, with other simple ceremonies, and established quite some supporting functions and roles as well, like a system architect who guides us along the technology transformation, or a release train engineer who helps us understand the safe framework along the way. And when we started getting used to these principles, we adopted more and more of these, and one of the major ones being the PI planning. The PI planning, for those who don't know what it is basically one of the major cadences within the safe framework, where you plan the product increment for the next 3 months, and related teams that have or should work together come together and discuss dependencies, discuss risks, and plan objectives together. And yeah, when we started using this and when we started doing the PI planning, it actually happened during the time of crisis, during COVID. So we had to do all of that online instead of meeting up. And just to share some experience of it, maybe back to Michael and Eva, how was it for you guys?
Yeah. So that's actually our real board, like from 2 years ago. And it was just weird, because none of the devs had met in person. I hadn't even met Fuad in person yet. So nobody really knew what was going on, but it was a start. And then we just started planning our objectives. So yeah, let's try what we're going to do the next 6 weeks. And when we started discussing, we came up, we need X, Y, Z. Where do we get that from? I don't know. But I have a dependency. Okay, let's raise it as a risk. Okay, and that actually happened a lot during the first PI planning. Everything that we didn't know was a risk, pretty much. And yeah, then we planned the first 3 sprints, so it was like a mini PI, and then handed over those risks and dependencies to Eva and said, help, please, where do we get this in Mercedes?
Yeah, basically you can summarize it with deal with it. So there were only 2 possibilities, like accept it or own it. Basically we had no idea how, but we accepted that we accepted the risks. In addition, no one would have ever thought that we would go live in 6 months. So there were a lot of doubts, and so we were sitting there like, so okay, let's deal with it. Surprising was really the confidence vote. So we used the confidence vote with a scale from 1, which is very bad, up to 5, which is nice. And it was totally confusing that we got a confidence vote result almost around 4. And I could not even imagine why. Where does this come from? So we were all a little bit confused. Why is this confidence so high? So we were so confused that we decided to adopt a red panda for all the colleagues. So just to describe our level of confusion. And then we discussed if we can maybe hand the red panda over to the management to get a little bit more support. But luckily, it was not needed, right?
Yeah, it wasn't needed. It wasn't needed, definitely.
Our panda.
Yeah. But even, the safe framework being quite new to us and quite, stepping into the unknown, we were starting to get used to it. Cadence after cadence, you start adopting more and more principles, and you start getting used to it. And after some time, we reached the level of maturity of the platform where we started onboarding applications onto the platform technically. And instead of just onboarding them technically onto the platform, we decided to take a leap and teach them about the safe framework and guide them into our release train, into our safe framework as well. And yeah, as it is with successful frameworks within organizations, more and more teams joined our framework, and we had an additional release train joining us with their own set of applications and their own set of supporting functions and roles, and etc. And that's more or less where we are today. And just to reflect on how it changed over time, maybe again back to Michael and Eva to show you what you see here.
So that's our last board. Well, it was still empty. This is now awesome. Also for all the development teams. So it's now, PI planning is 2.5 days. And the day before the actual planning, we have a developer system demo. And every team gets like 20 minutes or something?
Yeah, 20 minutes.
20 minutes, and where we really present the results of the last 3 months, down to the Terraform code or down to the Lambda code or whatever. So it's actually just a presentation for the devs from devs. And they really like it because they are usually really in the trenches, and working for 3 months, and every 3 months they are coming up and get to present the cool stuff they've been doing. And that actually worked so well, but we were just doing it for ourselves. And then people were just asking, can we join? And also management, like, can we see this? Okay.
If you
And then
understand.
at the last PI, we had hundreds and hundreds of people just watching because they really like actually seeing the technology evolving that we're building. And then the actual planning, so you see a lot of team boards there where you define your objectives and also try and estimate your iterations / sprints. And to be honest, it's a lot of work actually preparing this. So it's a lot of work before the PI planning, but if you do that well, then you can really dig deep into the objectives and define dependencies and already plan very well ahead. But now that we have 2 release trains, we still have a lot of dependencies and risks that we have to hand over to Eva then at the end of the day.
Yeah, nice. Let me share my very personal experience with the dependency board. So the first really huge dependency board I've seen with all the sticky notes and all the arrows and all the complexity, I really hated it. So it was hate on first sight, so to say. But now it's one of my best friends, to be honest. Almost open it daily, so it really changed because the dependency board, it works. At least in our approach, it really works. What was interestingly also evolving was the risk management, or let's call it like the risk roaming. And we had now problem-solving workshops. And we had some managers across different levels included there as well. And lessons learned, there are more than 2 states in risk management, not only accepted and owned. We were also able to solve issues and problems ad hoc. That was really an amazing experience. Basically, this showed also up in the confidence vote. The last one was almost 5, which is really amazing. It would be super interesting to have like a graph, yeah, the evolving of the confidence vote in the last 2 years. I don't know why we do not have this.
I'm not sure either.
Any idea?
But we can take care of it later.
Yeah, let's put it in the next sprint, please.
So, and yeah, just to highlight once more, we did that with hundreds of different developers physically because we are out of COVID now, out of the crisis. And we had quite some management showing up as well. And, you know, to basically now building up on top of this success and building up on top of this management commitment that we receive for this framework, our vision is not to only apply additional principles like a portfolio layer to align the objectives between those different release trains, but also to spread this framework and to adopt more and more release trains across the organization and maybe even go beyond the Mercedes-Benz Aftersales. Yeah, that being enough now about the SAFe framework in itself. Now, you know, we took care of the organization gaps, we took care of the technology gaps, but we were still having some gaps on the people domain and the change management domain. And, you know, applying these frameworks, we still were facing quite some challenges with it, and in particular, 2 major challenges. One being that central teams, just like our platform team, where a lot of application teams or a lot of other teams have dependencies to, are getting really exposed by this framework. And all of a sudden, you had our platform developers facing hundreds of different questions and requests across different domains along the end-to-end customer journey. And they couldn't really focus anymore on platform enhancement or actually platform development. And the other one being that, you know, we had the collaboration fostered, we had those cadences, but whenever we left the SAFe framework and we left those cadences, the application teams and our customers still had to take care of their journey to the cloud and throughout the cloud from development to production by themselves. And in order to shield our developers so they can actually focus on platform development, and in order to guide our customers even further, we decided to group these different questions and requests into different domains. And the very first one being the application onboarding. And this was also the very first team that we established around these domains. And yeah, questions like, how do I get onto the platform? What type of compliance do I have to take care of? And all these different initial interviews and conversations being taken care of by the application onboarding team to get them onboarded on top of our platform. Now, when those applications were on our platform, they still had to take care of all these technical challenges, and that's where we started implementing the application enablement team, a team which scales with the amount of applications on the platform and really brings those applications from development to production questions like, how do I code my Lambda function? Can you maybe do some pair programming with me to code it together? Or do I go for ECS Fargate? Do I deploy it on the EC2 instances? Or do I go for EKS? And all of these technical questions then being taken care of by the enablement team to enable those applications. An additional team that we established was the cross-functions team. Don't get confused by the name. It's just a name that was given by the organization. But a team that was basically bridging the gap on both ends. First, on an application end, so maybe those applications had to do or had to perform severe changes to the application to basically, get onboarded to the platform. So they got resources from that specific team to help them. Or bridging the gap on our platform side and taking care of services that we maybe deprioritize because of, mentioned plannings as well. And last but not least, the AWS Learning Path team in collaboration with AWS, definitely a game changer, a team that helped the organization and the cloud practitioners to learn about the services and technologies that we use on the platform. And when we did all of that, not only could our platform developers take care of platform development and platform enhancements, but our customers and stakeholders were happy as well. And that being it about the structural change and structural transformation, now let's jump into the lessons learned that we take from here. And the very first one, being a quite obvious one, yes, remote PI plannings are possible, especially during a time of crisis, but coming together physically definitely enhances team spirit and general efficiency, and all of a sudden you have different developers, hundreds of different developers coming together, discussing objectives or risks or whatever within coffee breaks or, changing rooms to discuss and plan objectives together.
And don't forget about the fun.
Yeah.
It's also important.
Exactly. The second one, lesson learned being, is that especially with such complex framework, be it SAFe or be it another framework or the shared responsibility in itself, implementing in a step-by-step approach can really ease the disruption and help those people with the change that they're expecting. Next one.
Okay, it's the last time today I'm going to say shared responsibility model.
Promised?
Promise.
Thank you.
But it just works if you apply it on all levels from the get-go. So even though, Fuad mentioned it, we had in the beginning one platform team, but the Terraform code was still divided between foundation and platform code, and that really helps us now that we have sister platforms and other use cases being onboarded, that we had this separation from the beginning. So this really helps. And also, Eva mentioned it, end-to-end responsibility. It's really hard for people to actually follow that path. And be aware that at some point, your responsibility now ends. So you don't have to take care of everything. You don't have to decide between Ethernet and token ring anymore. It's fine, somebody did it for you. And by defining clear interfaces between the layers, you can really ease the transitions. But it's also important to have on the top application layer still a lot of freedoms, because the application developers know best. It's just a fact. One thing that we didn't really touch on, because it's a different topic or like a complete talk in itself, is we really treated compliance processes as a virtue from the get-go. So that means from the start, we were every week in discussion with our ISOs and ISAs, and we're trying and succeeded in improving the platform security capabilities and the overall architecture. And we were doing pretty much for 2.5 years, we've been doing continuous, well-architected reviews. So that's maybe not always the case, but we are not that scared of corporate audits.
A little bit.
Not that scared of corporate audits, but because we've been auditing ourselves with our ISO and ISA teams for 2.5 years.
Last but not least, I think the most important lessons learned is developers. And of course customers, but listen to your developers, please, and adapt your framework accordingly. Let me quickly take the chance, if not now, then when. I want to give a quick shout out, to all our amazing colleagues, to our devs, to our operations team, to our architects, manager, and all the colleagues. Especially for those who cannot be here on site this week. So thank you for your dedication, for your commitment, and for your outstanding work. You are missed here, and we really love you. So, okay, that was enough for the fields. I hope it's fine. Yeah, guys, folks, do you have any questions?